Welcome back to Same Right Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew deep illusion necklines like this I saw on Instagram. So to begin this tutorial, we are going to first draft your basic bodice pattern. So I've drafted my basic bodice pattern, and this is my chest bust point, under bust line, waistline, and the full length of the corset I'm making use of 22 inches. So the waist is 17, so I added 5 inches making it 22. So I'm working with my neckline right now. So the neckline, I used 3.5 by 3.5. So I divided my shoulder into two, and here I have my yoke neckline. So the yoke neckline, I'll come out by 0.75 on both ways as usual and connect it to the bust point. Of course, you know how to go about this, so I'm going to run through it quickly. So I'll connect the sweetheart neckline to the chest line. You can connect to the bust point, you can even connect to the waistline. So but I'm going to connect this to the chest line, and then from that over bust line, I'll connect to the armhole, as you can see. So next, I'll take my bust radius all around. So you can see me taking my bust radius all around. That is bust point to under bust measurement. So I'm going to connect with my pattern ruler the cup. So I just want to complete the corset cup. So I will also take my bust radius and complete my corset cup. So I'm just going to teach you how to sew the front piece of just the yoke line. Okay, you can go ahead and complete your corset. So I'm adding my bust dart. So I have 2 inches as my bust dart. So this is my center front line. So at the under bust, I want to contour the under bust area. So I'm going to contour the under bust area by taking the under bust measurement, divide by 4. So whatever is left right there, I have 1.5. So I'll share 0.75 on each side, 0.75 from the original waist dart line. So I'll just connect, that is the bust contour line. So you can just go ahead and draft your corset the way you know how. Anyway, the most important part of this tutorial is the sewing part, just to show you how to sew a deep yoke line for a corset very well without issues. So now from that point I contoured, I'll take the measurement of what I have at the front and I'll take it down to the hemline. I'll repeat the same thing. I'll draw a straight line because I'm going to cut it out and merge it together. So what I have on that contour line, I'll also mark it and draw a straight line. So I'm going to cut out that part of my corset. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do now is to take my actual waist measurement, eliminating the dart. So I'm going to jump the dart and continue my waist measurement. So I'm just replacing that dart I'm going to cut off. I'll do that on the hemline too. Then after doing that, I'm going to recreate the shape of this corset. Okay, so on the bust area, I'm also taking my actual bust area on the chest line and I'll eliminate the dart. So I'm just replacing the dart. That's what I did. So like I said, if you are not comfortable with this corset pattern, you can just go ahead and make your corset pattern the way you know how. Okay, so I'm going to mark out that bust dart again because I've replaced my dart. So I'll just mark it out like that because we'll close the bust dart to achieve our result. So for this corset, I'll go up by 1.5 inch just to blend that pointy part. So I'll just go ahead and blend the pointy part, as you can see. So this is a pattern you are familiar with, but I just want to show you how I drafted mine. So like I said, the neckline I used 3.5 by 3.5. You can use 4 by 4, it depends, but I love to work with 3.5 by 3.5 for my corset yoke. So here is my yoke. So right now we are done. So for the back piece, you can go ahead and draft your back piece the way you want. Okay, so we are not actually going to go into that because my focus is on the front piece. So I will just go ahead and cut out this pattern, and I want you to see how I'm cutting it. So I'm just showing you everything I'm doing right here for clarity. So I'll cut, cut. So please follow all the cutting line. So you can see I'm cutting out that I'm cutting it out accordingly. So I'll just go ahead and cut, remove the dart, cut out the bodies of my corset, and then cut out the yoke, so I'll be able to cut out the cup. So here I'll just close up my bust. That I'll use my adhesive. You can use your seal tape, anything you can use to cut out the bust dart. So after cutting out the bust dart, the next I'm going to do is to reblend that part. So I'm going to reblend that part of my corset, and then I'm going to cut out that part. So here the corset is quite very much ready. So I'm going to join the part I cut out my dart. I'll join them together to form one piece of the corset. So I'll just use my seal tape and tape it together. So the body of my corset will be ready and complete for sewing. So like I said, the most important part of this tutorial is the sewing aspect, because I understand most people find it difficult to join a deep illusion neckline. So here I'm done cutting out. I added my seam allowance. Even at the center front I added 0.5 inch, and on the side 1.5 inch, and my corset cups I added 0.5 inch all around. So make sure you add your notches at the bust point, and also make notches at that center front area, the chest line area where we cut out the yoke. So this is what I have. So I'll go ahead right now to make notches on where the yoke is going to be sewn from. So make sure you make your notches. So in the process of sewing this particular deep illusion, we are going to make use of that notch. So I will go ahead to label my cups. Very important, you label your cups. So when sewing it is going to be easy. So I just want to pad this cup a little bit with my foam. So we have this corset foam that is trending nowadays. You can use to give your corset a lift. So I'll just place it, the foam, right now, and I'm going to cut it out accordingly. So I'll secure with my pins the both cups, and I'm going to cut out the foam before I move ahead to the stitching of my corset. So after cutting out, I added 0.5 inch for the stitching. So in this part, you can also use your wadding. Some people can use wadding, some designers use foam. So whichever one that matches, or you can even use your hairstay alone since you are using your bra cup. But I just want to do something different right here, just to give my cup a lift. So I'll just go ahead and sew this foam only to the fabric, not the lining. So I'll just place it, as you can see me place it right here right now, and I'll go over to the machine now to stitch the cups accordingly. So you can see I left I cut out some seam allowance, some space, so it's not too bulky to attach my yoke. Okay, so make sure you trim off like 1 inch or 1.5 inch. So you can see I'm trimming off that foam, because the foam can actually be thick when sewing. So if you don't trim out this side, when you are attaching your yoke, it will be difficult for you to turn that part of the yoke effectively. So I'm going to repeat the same process for this particular, the other side of the cup. So you can see how I cut out the cup. So because we have our deep illusion neckline coming from the neckline to the chest line, so you have to cut the cup the way I did. So now I'm also going to cut into it a little bit more. So after that, this is what I have on the bodies of the dress. So this is the fabric. It's actually a transparent corset but with deep illusion neckline. So I am going to mark out the chest lines, sorry, the bust, the boning lines. So the boning lines, I mark them at 2 inches. So I'm going to rule my line across. So that is the point I'm going to sew my boning at 2 inches. So I'll go ahead and sew and mark. So I want it to actually to be slanty. So the down part is 1 inch, but the waistline is 2 inches. So I will rule my boning lines right now, and I'll go over to my machine to stitch the lines. So I'm just making sure I have my line accurately marked. So I will rule my lines because I want it slanty. So if you want it straight, you can just go ahead and mark 2 inches on the waist and on the hem, full length of the corset. So these are the lines I want to sew my corset. So the same measurement I took on the right side of the corset, I'm going to also take the same measurement on the left side of this corset. So after marking, I've cut out my strip at 2 inches. I'm going to use my regling boning to sew this. My regling boning is 0.5 inch. So this 0.5 inch, I'm going to wrap this boning. So I will go over to my machine now. So I'll take all the measurements of my lines and take it on the boning. So I'm going to cut the boning according to the measurement, taking away 1 inch up and down. Then I'll go ahead and cut the strip, sew my boning, wrap it and stitch. So here I'm done with my boning. Of course, you know how to go about that. So here is the boning structure, and because it's a transparent corset, I'm going to lay my mesh on top of it. So you can double your mesh, you can make it triple, you can make it 2 or 3 is okay. Then I'll go over to my machine now and I'm going to stitch around to hold the mesh. Okay, so I'm done stitching to hold the mesh right now. So the next thing we are going to do after stitching is to move over to the sewing of the corset cup. So I'll just go ahead to sew the corset cup. I've hasted the foam I cut on the fabric and I have my notches on the bust point. So I'll just go ahead and sew my cup. So my cup is ready. Like I said, the lining, there is no foam to it, so I gave it a good press and I'm going to use my bra cup to further sew this cup. So I'll fix my bra cup at the bust point and I'll go over to the machine to stitch to make it one piece. So here I'm done with it. The next thing I'm going to do right now is to fix this cup to the body of this dress. So you can see how the cup is. I make sure I stretch out the cup accordingly before stitching. So I'll bring back the body of the dress and here I'm going to sew the bodies of these corset. So I'll go over to the machine now and I'm going to stitch from one end. Okay, so make sure that center bust point area matches with the body center bust point before you stitch. So I'll start from the beginning and stitch. So I'm done stitching. As you can see, like I said, this part is the most important part of this tutorial. Just want to show you how to sew this dip. So this dip illusion neckline, be it a corset or be it a bustier, you have to split the center front line, open, as you can see, both for lining and for fabric. So you can see my lining and my fabric cup, they are all ready. So I'm going to go over to the joining. I will sew my yoke first, okay? After sewing the yoke, so this is my yoke I cut out and added my seam allowances. They are 2 in number right there. So I'll take it to the machine to sew both the neckline. So the yoke is ready now. So I'll place this yoke first from that point I notched. I'm going to sew it, leaving 0.5 inch below it. I will secure it with my pin on one side of the corset. So this is the technique I want to show you, and that is the purpose of this tutorial, because I know many of you know how to sew your corset perfectly. So but if it has a deep illusion neckline, this is the best way to sew it, okay? And since we are also going to embellish, so we don't have any issues with that. So I'll sew my cup now. So you see my yoke is ready on one side. I will bring back the other side. The notch I told you to make is very important, so I'm going to fix that notch. After cleaning up the edges, I'll pin the other side of the corset on that same notch I made. So these notches will be on the yoke and on the corset. So I'll just pin it. So I'm going to pin this other side on that notch. Then I'll start from the under to sew. So I'm sewing the under. So you can see I'm done sewing the under. The next I will do is to also pin the other side of the corset. So I'll pin my yoke to the other end. So here you can see I've pinned my yoke and I've sewn. So I'll just clean up the edges. So now the front or the fabric part of this corset is ready. So I'm going to sew right now. From that point I'll follow the yoke line. So first of all, make sure you pin before you sew. So I'll just follow that 0.5 inch on the yoke line. I'm going to complete the sewing. So you see how beautiful and neat and pointy that part is looking. So I've joined everything. So we'll also cover that part with our boning structure. You can do it now or you can do it later. So I'll bring the lining. So this is how you are going to fix your lining. So we are going to first take off the excesses we stitched. We have. Then I'm going to match this particular corset. So I will make sure all the stitching lines are matched accordingly. Then I'll pin and proceed to sew. So I'll just sew only on the yoke line. So I'll sew that part, as you can see. So after sewing one part of it, I'll now go over to sew the other part of it using the same method. So on the side I left 1.5 inch for the side seam. Then I stitch to the end. So after stitching, this is what I have. I'm going to clean up the edges and make my notches, very important. And I'll also take it to the machine and top stitch so that the lining lays nice and flat for us. Can you see that? So I'll go and top stitch. Make sure you top stitch to have a good result. Now The next we are going to do is to place the other one and use the same method to sew. You can see I've done that already. Now finally, we are now going to bring the two pieces together and stitch from the under till I get to that end. So the dress is very much ready now. So I'll just go ahead and give it a good press. So the front piece is ready. So I can now go ahead and sew the remaining part of my boning. So I'll use the same method I use in sewing my boning to sew that center piece. So like I said, this is the main purpose of this tutorial. So you can see how beautiful and neat this illusion yoke line is. So I'm going to stitch my boning only on the fabric. Please don't forget to sew only on the fabric. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll bring it back for you to see. So this is how I stitch my boning. I'm just showing you how this center part will be stitched. You can see how I turned it. Okay, so I'm done sewing, and this is what I have. So after sewing, the front piece is ready. So the next thing you now do is to join the back part of this corset. So the back part, like I said, I am not working on it for this tutorial, but I've already finished working on it. So I'll join the neckline together. This is the neckline, and we are done with this tutorial. Please kindly subscribe and turn on your notification bell.